So Israel is now bombing Iran, and probably the funniest turn of events I've seen in a while. The Israeli Air Force has dominance over Iranian skies, superiority if not dominance. And now you're seeing a lot of people on the populist right, people like Tucker Carlson, who's a temporarily embarrassed member of the elite, who's angry that he wasn't given his own spot as an elite, so he's mad at the elites, essentially. Claiming that this is terrible and Iran's just this peaceful fucking country and they're innocent, never done anything to anybody. And you have the predictable, possible Russian troll, I'm an 11B guys. I don't want to fight for Israel, as if we have ground troops anywhere, as if America is contemplating marching, I guess, from Kuwait all the way to Tehran and toppling the government. Ridiculous. So, there's a lot of problems with a lot of these assertions I'm seeing. I'm seeing people claim Iran is some great military power. It's not. It never has been. It was conquered by 50,000 Macedonians with fucking stabby sticks. Okay? It was conquered by the Mongols with significantly, probably double that number, maybe triple, where they were able to obviously outmaneuver the Khwarezmian Shah and destroy his empire, which was actually stronger than current day Iran by far. But I see people claiming that, Iran is greatly militarily powerful and we should, nobody should do anything to the Iranians, etc., etc. Well, the United States is very sensitive to nuclear blackmail, as evidenced by Russia. So it is funny that Trump would say Iran cannot have a nuke, would give Israel the go-ahead to bomb them, and then turn around and basically try to continue appeasing the Russians, which is what we've been doing since, 2008 at least, when they invaded Georgia and started cyber attacking Estonia, took out their entire banking system. Just a little thing that happened that nobody talks about, nobody responds to. For some reason, people are saying, Iran is so powerful, it's got this huge population, but who cares? The large population in geography means nothing unless it means you have a defense industrial base that would allow them to compete with Israel, which they don't. They have the ability to make cheap Shahed drones, which they then deployed into Europe, mind you, so that the Russians would have enough munitions to terrorize the Ukrainians. And if Iran is this peaceful country not harming anyone, why is that happening? Why have they been a sponsor of terrorism since the 80s? Essentially mad at the U.S. for supporting the Shah, which, we have every right to do. It's not as if we would have told the Shah not to be a constitutional monarch or have a more liberal political system. We probably would have agreed to that, but that wasn't a workable thing. So, again, they're the ones supporting terrorism throughout the Middle East. We've, killed Qasem Soleimani for that reason. It's Iranian proxies that are attacking international shipping, including American vessels in the Red Sea. Again, there's no real center of terrorism like Iran right now. So there's no, ISIS was basically defeated. Even the Taliban, who took power back, are against ISIS and not really in the business of harboring anyone. They had a little shooting spat with Iran recently, so did Pakistan of all places. More than likely, it's not really a question of Iran or Israel becoming a regional power. It's actually Turkey that is likely going to be the de facto winner, Iran has no military capacity, it looks like. So they have ballistic missiles, which they've been firing into Israel. They don't have a good military record. They couldn't even beat Saddam Hussein. Okay, and what I mean by that is they attempted to invade Iraq at the end of the Iran-Iraq War, failed, were forced to the peace table by Saddam. Saddam survived the war strong enough to start a war with the West. It took us 10 years of no-fly zones and bombing before we felt comfortable to actually send an army into Iraq proper after liberating. The fuck? Somebody just almost hit me. So, yeah, it took a while. It wasn't just a thing that happened overnight. And, America doesn't just decide to send in the 7th Corps. That's not going to happen. Nobody's drafting anyone. There's no draft in the U.S. In fact, everyone complaining that's like 20 and wouldn't even meet physical standards to even join the military, complaining about a draft, there's not going to be a draft. There's more likely to be a draft if Putin gets what he wants in Ukraine and invades Eastern Europe, and a wider war goes down in Europe over that. There's more likely to be a draft if, as a result of appeasing Putin and not supporting the Ukrainians, China's emboldened, attacks Taiwan, threatens the Pacific, etc., which we are totally not prepared for, by the way. Our defense industrial base is not prepared for that at all, and we have not learned the lessons of Ukraine. We've not taken advantage of that. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a mess. But Iran has lost air superiority to Israel, of all countries, who doesn't have half the power that the U.S. does. If the U.S. chose to bomb Iran, Iran would not be able to respond in any meaningful way. They don't really have a navy. They don't really have an air force. They have airplanes that we sold them in the 70s, right? They've got a bunch of shitty Russian planes. They've got a bunch of shitty Russian air defense systems that can't do anything against Israel. Couldn't do anything against us by proxy, if you examine that. So the question isn't, oh, is Iran going to be some quagmire? The question is, if the United States went into Iran and bombed them, that's the most likely option, and the Iranian government was weakened enough for a civil war to start in Iran between, let's say, the Khuzastanis in the south and the Persians and various religious minorities all over the country, and a faction of, let's say, the Iranian army wanted to overthrow the Revolutionary Guards Corps, or the Quds Force, and the mullahs, which is kind of how there's a friction in the Iranian government anyway. If that happened, how much worse would that be for the world? How much of a humanitarian catastrophe would that be? Not, would America become bogged down in some insane Iraq 2, which wasn't even a loss. We actually won that war. Nobody noticed. I guess because they expected literal flowers being laid at American soldiers' feet. We lost something like 4,000, 5,000 men, and then this country was stabilized. I mean, I don't. It's unheard of in terms of being able to do that as far from the U.S. as we did, and walk away with as little damage as we had. The damage really was in terms of our treasury. The amount of money we spent on the global war on terror was massive, but it's not like that money was going to go into the civilian economy. If it wasn't spent on the military, they weren't going to spend it on healthcare. I keep seeing that. If we did not get healthcare when Hillary Clinton wanted to do it in the 90s, we were never going to get it. Okay, not to say we can't get it in the future, but there's a very substantial possibility that Iran is the last impediment to real peace in the Middle East in terms of terrorism, Islamic terrorism. There's really no Salafi terrorists left in the Middle East in terms of what they're once able to do. They've kind of been suppressed and beaten. And so really the last people we have to worry about is them. And whatever's going on in Israel-Palestine, that's intractable as long as we supply them with munitions. Even if we didn't supply them with munitions, this is what people understand. If we did not supply them with munitions, There's a good chance the Russians would. There's a good chance the Chinese would. They and not only that, but they have their own defense industry inside of Israel that famously makes the Uzi, makes the Merkava, makes their own air defense. Which I don't know why people are saying their air defense is failing. It is not easy to shoot down ballistic missiles. So I mean, yeah, they're shooting them down, but they're still hitting sites in Israel. But I see all these progressive voices that are supposedly not anti-Semitic salivating over Tel Aviv getting hit with rockets, and I'm just, well, what's going on here? Why are we on Iran's side when they're one of the least progressive countries on the planet, terribly repressive to everyone, and the world would unequivocally be a better place without the Iranian mullahs in charge? I mean, that's obvious. But I don't think, for people to say, oh yeah, well, Americans don't want war. Well, I don't think we have a stomach for it. I don't think that the generation, it's been too long since 9/11, and everybody forgot about that. And the result of that was a long, protracted war against, essentially a handful of countries, if you really look at it, but not a clear strategic victory, because there's no clear strategic aim. You're just fighting terrorism. So, I mean, yeah, we prevented another 9/11. That's a thing. You see the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which, wasn't even necessary to begin with. You didn't even have to cut that deal with the Taliban. I don't know why Trump would do that and why Biden would do nothing when the Taliban came out of hiding and was overthrowing the Afghan National Army. I mean, we could have done something, but our expenditures there were all related to nation building. It's not guaranteed if you attack Iran, you're going to engage in any kind of nation building. I don't know why that's an assumption. We bombed Libya in the 80s. We did not nation build. Nobody. I'm guessing then there were some hippies somewhere. That's who would have been against it. But yeah, Iran does not have military capacity. I don't know why people keep saying this. Like, they're going to run out of missiles. They don't have that many ballistic missiles. They're not that great. They're not that accurate. They don't have the air power to strike Israel. Israel really doesn't have the air power to strike Iran other than what they've been doing. And, obviously the most likely thing is we just give Israel bunker busters, and if they have the airframes to even drop them and say, go to town on Iran, and in which case that's really not going to impact us because it would just be Israel dropping weapons. So, yeah, I mean, Iran is funding Russia's war in Ukraine. I mean, it did arm Russia to fight Ukraine. So I don't know what the argument is that Iran is like this innocent ass country. They're interfering in a European war that they have nothing to do with, just for the purposes of currying favor with the Russians, and of course preventing them from being attacked. But that hasn't really done them any good because Russia has its hands full in Ukraine. So don't know why people are assuming that this is some like grand power.